It looks like you have a dead memory.
Stubborn for 13 years.
Whispering, are you crazy?
They point to the New Testament gospel.
I am delivered. I don't like men no more. I said I like women. Women.
Is it true that you want to fly commercial so that you can fly in luxury? How much money did you pay for Tyler Perry's Gulfstream jet, for example?
Well, for example, that's really none of your business. But
Isn't it the business of your donors?
listen,
Like you have a dead
I've
memory.
paid.
If you like to talk to tomatoes.
There are 10 reasons why you should never celebrate Halloween.
It looks like you have a dead memory.
Hey Trap Tribe, it's me, Ashley of Trap Pray Love. If you hear a little bit of banging in the background, I sincerely apologize. Contractors are fixing the apartment, like the roof more specifically. So for that, I apologize with any audio with this video. We have a lot to talk about. For those of you that are part of the Trap Tribe, where's the top of my microphone? For those of you that are new here, I'm a little bit of a diva and I need my microphone to be as pop star like as it could be. If I could be on here with one of those Britney Spears headsets, I would do that. So thank you for watching my channel. If you are returning, I love you. If you are new here, please subscribe so you can be a part of the dumpster fire that is the Trap Tribe. So this is the second episode to the series that I started called
Trapped in Hell.
It took me a little bit to come up with a good topic for this series just because I didn't want this series to be like a drama channel shit talking thing. Lately, I've been racking my brain. I'm just trying to come up with another idea for an episode of this. And then I started realizing that I have like serious issues with something that I've really been keeping close to myself, but I was like, hey, why don't I be a little transparent with everyone and just open up with how I've been feeling? And hey, I don't know how to just say it, but I'm just going to come out and say it. Y'all, I really do not know how I feel about God. Like, yeah. Like I just dropped that on y'all, right? Like, yes, this is a God episode. I do not know how I feel about God. Like when I was younger, I used to really heavy believe in God, or maybe I convinced myself to believe in God, or maybe because I thought that was the right thing to do, because I'm not gonna lie. My belief in God wasn't so much like the belief in miracles and all the good shit of God. My belief in God when I was younger stemmed from my absolute fear of hell. And mind you, when I was a little kid, like God was very scary to me. When I was about 7 years old, my mom told me about the rapture, right? Like the scariest shit. And she didn't tell me this by like reading the Bible or watering it down for me. She showed me one of these like terrifying religious booklets that just talked about the end of days. Between the ages of like 7 to 11, no matter what activity I was doing, I would have like a creeping thought in the back of my head that all of a sudden people would start getting raptured away and I would be left behind, like in those terrifying ass movies. For those of you that didn't grow up in like super religious households, there is like all types of media and shit that is just like so heavily Christian that it's literally like a whole nother world existing in the world. Like how secular people that are raised outside of the church, how they have like horror movies. We had horror movies that was literally like, hey, what if one day you're just like driving your car and people just start getting raptured? The rapture is gonna fucking start. To me, I don't know about everyone else, the horror movies that I think are the scariest are the ones that like at the end it's like based on a true story. No, like imagine watching the scariest shit in your life and everyone around you is like, yep, that's really going to happen. It's just so terrifying, like just living your life in complete fear. Like I was scared of God. I just want to make a disclaimer that this video is not intended to like talk shit about Christianity or really tear down any people that do believe in that. However, can you get off of my ring light, you evil cat? But I do just want to say, if you don't like what I'm saying in this video, you can always unsubscribe.
Oh, fuck out of here.
Always leave. So sit back, relax, grab a glass of your holiest water. All jokes aside, I actually do have holy water. So before I get into where I am now with my faith, I thought that it would just be appropriate to tell you how I exactly got to the spot. I was raised in a single parent household by my father, and he raised my brother and I loosely religious. With that being said, my mother was also loosely around. But we weren't really allowed to see her until she had like a stable living situation. But when she settled down, she eventually married my stepdad, who was like full on fanatic religious, which made her super religious. And when we went to see her, like when we went to visit her on some weekends, I mean, she was like the type of Christian that was like banning Harry Potter books, saying that Halloween was the devil's birthday, and pretty much anything that was like a little bit fun was fun because the devil made it fun. I have this one story where I remember being in a store with my mom and my stepdad, and Holla Back Girl came on the radio, and I remember being so excited and singing it in the store, and my stepdad forced me to shut up because he said that that song didn't glorify God. And from that moment on, I decided that I would be a villain from a Batman comic book, when probably my only arch nemesis would be Larry Boy. So in front of my mom and my stepdad, I went with the flow to stay out of trouble because that's what kids do. I just really loved God, but when I was at my dad's house, where I was most of the time, I was just a regular kid that enjoyed regular kid shit. And I kind of learned early on how to live a double life. And this was something that stuck with me for as long as I was a Christian. And it's something I learned very early on. And then I started having like regular teenage emotions that I didn't really understand at the time. Like a lot of issues with relationships, and then issues with like mood swings. And I started noticing that the Bible really wasn't helpful to me. Like there's no passage on like what the fuck to do when your boyfriend doesn't text you back and shit like that. You know, that seemed like it was a big deal when you're a teenager. And my mentors that I had around me really weren't helpful either. They were just like, well, just focus on God, and you know, your parents are the best thing that happened to you. And I'm just thinking as a teenager, like, I hate my parents though. Why is the Bible not answering the question of why do I hate my parents? So then in my junior year, I started being more defiant with my parents. Like I remember skipping school and then lying about it. And I guess they decided that they were going to send me to Catholic school to straighten me out. Mind you, they sent me to Michigan, where I am not from. And I'm from DC, so I'm from a city. Then I lived in a European city. And then all of a sudden, I'm in the Midwest in the wintertime. I made friends quickly there, but I noticed that like going to Catholic school is like going to a regular school where we sometimes pray and sometimes go to mass. And it really just kind of like fucked with me internally, because I was like, why are we spending time just practicing Christianity as a hobby if this is like not the way that like anyone really is living their lives? And then around the time I was 17, I started having those big questions about God. Like, what is my purpose? Why do bad things happen to good people? Why do I need my parents' tax information on my FAFSA? And I was always like starting to get some of the same answers to those questions, and it was always God works in mysterious ways. And I was like, why? Why does God work in mysterious ways? Why doesn't he want to help me by letting me know the answer to those questions? And like, even in just like small fucking questions that I was having, like, I just started like not even believing the Bible itself. And that's a big thing in Christianity. Like, you have to believe in what is going on in the Bible. And to me, like, the Bible just wasn't making fucking logical sense to me at 17. Like, one of the most unbelievable stories in the Bible to me was the story of Noah. I just could not wrap my head around a senior citizen not only building this giant boat single-handedly, but collecting all of the animals on Earth, 2 of them, 2 from each species, and they all happen to be within walking distance. And it was just shit like that where I'm just like, bro, come here, Benica. What is this about? And then I would always hear, God works in mysterious ways. Like, let me tell you something. If I were to get in my car right now and it just doesn't start, and I'm like, okay, and I get it towed to get it fixed at a shop, and they're just like, your car works in mysterious ways, that would not be okay for me. When I was in Catholic school, I decided to go talk to the pastor that was there that was supposed to help with like the teenagers, kind of like a counselor, but he's more like religious, you know? So I went in there and I told him, I was like, yo, my faith is being tested. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. And, you know, he gave me a roundabout answer talking about the Lord working in mysterious ways and that I just have to keep my faith. And I went home that day and I Googled the actual definition to faith, and it said the belief without proof. And my God, if my faith didn't completely evaporate, because no part of our society is conducive to believing in things without proof. Like, the people out here believing in shit without proof, we consider them the crazy people. We consider them like irrational and just like in La La Land type people. And we kind of just like, you know, so my whole thing with that is that, you know, there are parts of church and our part of the Christian faith that definitely like do give you a sense of peace. But I get that same sense of peace of hearing about how Jesus helped people by honestly reading a Hunger Games book, or, you know, or just like doing something that I like. So my thing was like, why am I buying into all of the other dumb shit with Christianity when I can get that same sense of peace that I get from Jesus in something else? Can I just save time? And won't it feel more natural? Now I don't have to live a double life. So in doing research for this video, I'm sorry, I have my laptop right now. I asked a lot of people that are my age because I didn't want to feel like I was the odd one out. I just kind of wanted a little bit of confirmation, like, hey, does anyone else feel like that? Was anyone else raised in the church? And, you know, like, you know, what is like the one reason why you kind of stepped away? And one thing that I noticed is that like the biggest thing, a lot of people my age, they say a lot of the reasons that they don't go to church right now is because, one, church is kind of a joke. Not to mention, did you guys know that there's an actual church that is called the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster? You should definitely look it up because it is meant to be satirical. Not only do a lot of people say like church is kind of a joke in the US, but they also don't like the way that money is spent in the church. So churches in the US make most of their money from donations. And since they're not taxed by the US government, all of the money that they receive from these donations are tax-free. And here's something that I found out in researching this video that I thought was insane. Did you know that the Church of Satan actually does pay taxes? Like, they willingly pay taxes just because they make so much money from donations. They figured that they should just do it. And I think it's just like mind-blowing. Bro, nothing makes sense in America. Okay, so let's do some math here. Let's do some math. So the math is the more members that you have, the more money that you make. So let's say I open a church in a small strip mall, and we've all seen those strip mall churches. Rent and monthly expenses. I Googled for like a little strip mall space. The expenses come out to about $2,000. So if I have a small congregation of about 100 members, and I send the collection plate around, and let's say that each person gives $500. So that's $500 on a Sunday, given that we only gather on Sundays, and there's 4 Sundays in a month. I've paid my rent and my expenses for the month. So I survived, but I did not break. But let's just be honest about businesses in America. Breaking even is not the goal. It should be the goal. In my opinion, it should be the goal for churches, because you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for the faith. You're doing it for people. You're doing it to give back. You are in service. Jesus teaches a lot about being in service to everyone else. But this ain't La La Land. So we need a way to break even. So some ways that churches do break even, they try to grow their congregation. So you can grow your congregation doing like outreach things. You can like host an event. You can start charging for certain services. Like if you want people to get married in your church, you can charge them a fee if they want to do their wedding, or if they want to host like a funeral service and things like that. Or maybe you can start telling your congregation that you need to start paying 10% of your entire income to the church, because that is what God wants you to do. Or maybe you'll tell them to sow a seed of faith, and we'll come back to sowing seeds of faith. So when someone gives 10% of their income to the church, that is called a tithe. And the tithe, that whole rule is actually in the Bible. There is a lot of debate around whether 10% is actually in the Bible. I've heard a lot of people say, like growing up, that it doesn't say you have to give 10%. There's actually a passage in the Old Testament that talks about giving 10% actually to God, and that is a tithe. And let's go through that right now. So the word tithe in Hebrew actually means tenth. And because the practice of tithing is biblical, many Christians and Jews practice this as part of their faith. So Leviticus chapter 27, verse 30 reads, "A tenth of the produce of the land, whether grain or fruit, is the Lord's and is holy." So this verse is used by a lot of pastors, by a lot of church leaders, to defend that, you know, when you're tithing, what God wants is a tenth. There's a lot of debate around whether this is in the Bible or not. It is Leviticus chapter 27, verse 30. So basically, God wants whatever you make, tenth of it belongs to God. Little confused about that, because like, what if what I'm doing, what I'm making is not like in line with what God would like approve of? Like, what if I'm like doing OnlyFans shit? Should I give a tenth of my pics to God? Like what I made off of my feet photos to God? Like, what if I'm a drug dealer? Does God get like a tenth of my... So let's get back to the math. So if I'm making what the average of an American is making a year, and that's about 40K, God expects me to give $4,000 a year. So that's about $77 every Sunday. So when that collection plate comes around, my tithe would be $77 every Sunday to this church. So now that church that costs about $2,000 to operate in a month, with most of the congregation, say most of the congregation is making $40,000 a year, and they're donating their 10%, they will have given $31,000 in 1 month, which leads so after I pay rent, that leaves me $29,000 a month to do whatever with, tax-free. That's 100 people in a small strip mall congregation. $29,000 a month. So here's another thing. Growing up religious, I've read the Bible cover to cover. The first time I did it, I was about 10 or 11, and I've done it a couple times. There is there's a big gap between the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament has a lot of like draconian rules, and the New Testament is basically when Jesus comes and he's like, hey guys, like whatever y'all were believing in the Old Testament, I've kind of like, tweaked a little bit of the shit. So depending on like your sect of Christianity, the New Testament is really what we're supposed to be going by if you do believe in Jesus. Like, I don't know, people are probably going to tear me apart in the comments, but there is a lot of times in the New Testament where like people would argue with Jesus and he'd be like, hey, shut up. I'm the Son of God. This is the new shit that we're doing now. So Jesus actually talked about tithes in the New Testament, and Matthew chapter 23 verse 23 says, woe unto you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye pay the tithe of mint and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. Those ought ye to have done, and not to leave the other undone. So what that means is Jesus basically was like, yo, you niggas out here is worrying so much on the 10% that y'all are not worrying about being good people out here, which is way more important. That's what Jesus said. No, but Jesus was literally like, y'all are focusing too much on the 10% and y'all are not doing what y'all are supposed to be doing. And I think that is so awesome. Very, very awesome of Jesus. Like, this is why we rock with Jesus. And the thing is that we're still seeing this running rampantly through the church. Like, if Jesus was here right now and he would attend one of these churches, he would be like, what is you niggas doing? Like, when truly catastrophic shit happens to Christians, to people that have given a tenth, more than a tenth, all their offerings to the church, when shit really happens, a lot of these leaders are not there. Speaking, let's talk a little bit about your boy Joel Osteen. Joey, Papa Joey. So in Texas, Hurricane Ida was like catastrophic. And Pastor Joel Osteen, who by the way is worth $50 million, he tweeted that he would open up his church and use it like a hurricane resource center to help people most in need. So he invited like a bunch of volunteers to come out and help the community, to give out donations and just pretty much do their service for all of the people that were horribly affected by Hurricane Ida in Texas. And I don't know what happened right after he tweeted that he was going to open up his church to everyone, but then he sent out another tweet saying that his church was inaccessible due to flooding. So he was like, yeah, all that good shit that we're gonna do, it's off, you can't get into the building. However, a lot of volunteers already started showing up, and what was crazy about it, they started taking pictures and posting them online showing that the building wasn't flooded and that the building was fucking fine. And it pissed a lot of fucking people off, and it leads you to like ask the question, like, what the hell are you doing with our money? And let's not even talk about like how there is like hundreds of thousands of dollars like stashed in the walls of this fucking building, like National Treasure style. Do y'all remember that? Like, so like, here's my thing, and maybe it's like a hot take and maybe it's not the same thing that a lot of people agree with. I don't care about rich people flexing, not even pastors. Like, I don't care about pastors being super wealthy and being like, look at my jet, look at my Gucci shoes. I don't give a fuck about that. But I do give a fuck about if you are making all of this money off of people just giving it to you and you're not helping those same people when they do need you and you're not really showing anything for that, then that's when I have a problem. Like, I wouldn't give a fuck if you're walking around in Gucci shoes and you're like healing people and all this shit. But like, if something does happen and you're giving back, I would be like, oh, I would like overlook that. Like, I wouldn't have so much animosity. And I feel like a lot of people think the same way too. But this is like blatantly like smacking people in the face. And honestly, like, when you're doing all this flexing and you turn around and you don't help the community, you're hurting it. Like, I don't think that Jesus would approve. And apparently nowadays, if you're not being left high and dry by a wealthy pastor, you might just get beat up by one. And so just to wrap up a little bit while we're talking about the money, I feel like this video would not be great if I didn't talk about the prosperity gospel, which I hinted towards earlier in the video. So basically the prosperity gospel is about sowing a seed of faith in the way that it will grow and come back to you. So prosperity theology is the belief that financial well-being and success is in God's will for everyone. So basically, if you sow a seed of faith, you give money, you will be blessed financially more abundantly. So it's kind of like if you sow an actual seed and then like a plant will grow. If you give actual money, that money will grow and give you more money.
The size of your seed will determine the size of your harvest. I don't understand why, but there's something happens at a level where people step into faith and give $1,000 that don't happen at other levels.
You're going to have a breakthrough through this $273 seed.
All you've got is $1,000. Listen, that's not enough money anyway to buy the house. You're trying to get in the apartment. You're trying to buy the house. That's not enough money anyway. You get to that phone and you put that seed in the ground and watch God work.
Now, I necessarily don't have an issue with how people spend their money or how they choose to spend their money, but I do have an issue with how predatory I believe that seed sowing faith theology is, because a lot of the times people tell you to sow seeds of faith instead of seeking medical attention. And that's where I think that it can be a little dangerous, because you're like really encouraging people to spend money to give to other shit when they could really be using that money to get medical help. So like if you're sick, you give your money to a church and you won't really directly receive like healing from regular doctors. You would just receive healing from them. And sometimes they'll even like mail you packets of water or like other shit. And I don't really know if I agree with like a lot of churches, how they do healing miracles. I think that is super predatory, because we could spend our money on other shit. Like, could you imagine going to the doctor for an ailment and then this nigga just takes off his coat and he just like starts swinging it in the office? Like, you would be like, what is going on with Kaiser nowadays? Like, now, I really wanted to make this video to see what you guys think about it. Leave a comment. What did I miss? What should I revisit? I definitely want to make a part 2 of this topic, because there is a lot more that I want to say. It's a lot more rabbit holes that I found when I was researching this video. What do you guys think? I really want to know, what do you think about the church? Do you still go? What do you think needs to be fixed about the church? Or if you don't think there's any problems, like definitely leave a comment, reach out to me, because I definitely want to revisit this. But I want to thank you guys for watching. And if you liked this video, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. I definitely want to grow my community. I definitely want to take YouTube on full time, and also subscribe to Trap Bray Love Tarot and my son's YouTube page, which is MJ on the Move. All right, guys.